Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar as part of Business in Tandem, an initiative by the City of Montreal in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce of Metropolitan Montreal, designed to expand connections with cities worldwide. Today, we'll explore business opportunities in the cybersecurity sector between Boston and Montreal. My name is Reina Obregon. I am Project Manager, International Market Development at the Chamber of Commerce of Metropolitan Montreal, and I'm delighted to host today's session. I would like to take a moment to thank our partner, the City of Montreal, for making this event possible, and to Canada Economic Development for Quebec Regions for its ongoing support in our international activities. Few quick notes before we start. If you have questions, please submit them via the chat or raise your hand to ask them during the question period. You're invited to complete the survey available throughout the session, and this webinar is recorded and will be available on the Chamber's website in 2 weeks. We also invite you to stay afterward for a 30-minute networking activity. Without further ado, let's begin. Now I would like to invite for the welcoming remarks Valérie Poulin, Director Market Development at the City of Montreal, followed by Segun Idowu, Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion at the City of Boston. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Rina. Bonjour à tous. Good morning, everyone, from a very wintry, snowy, beautiful Montreal. Let's see. Back during the challenging days of the pandemic, the City of Montreal, together with our colleagues at the Chamber of Commerce, we launched the Business in Tandem initiative. And the goal was very simple, but vital. It was to help Montreal company connect with business partners in all major cities at a very time when international travel was impossible. So fast forward to today, we need to build strong business relationship across border, and it remains just as important. That's why we're here today alongside our colleague from Boston to showcase our respective ecosystems in a sector that matters more than ever, cybersecurity. Before passing the floor to Mr. Segun Idowu from the City of Boston, I want to express our sincere thanks to all of the partners who made this event possible, Mass Cyber Center, CyberEco, as well as the company sharing their experiences doing business across border, Coash, Go Secure, Fortinet, and Rapid7. And of course, a special thanks to the Greater Chamber of Montreal of Commerce for their continued support. And with that, Segun, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Valerie, and good morning to all of you. I'm actually very, very happy to be here with all of you this morning and share similar praise and appreciation for all the partners that have helped to make this event possible this morning and every opportunity to come together. I have to, being from Boston, I especially have to shout out Fortinet and Rapid7. I'm grateful that they're here today, especially want to lean on the Rapid7 relationship as the CEO, Corey Thomas, is a huge fixture of not just the business community, but all across of our neighborhoods, serving as the chair of the Chamber of Commerce board here in Boston. So very, very happy that we're continuing the building of these relationships, and certainly want to thank our partners at in the Commonwealth. Glad that Mass Cyber Center is represented here today, and certainly Mayor Wu and Governor Healy are lockstep in ensuring that the Commonwealth and the City of Boston remain at the forefront of innovation. This event is not just an important continuation of the Boston-Montreal connection, but for me, it's an example of the type of bilateral cooperation that's needed to strengthen our regional economies. And certainly for the mayor herself, she has not taken many trips overseas in her first term, but one that was very important for her was crossing a border very close here, when she went to Nova Scotia just a few weeks ago. And that was important not just because we wanted to make sure we got to see the cutting of the tree that's been happening for many years now to light up the Boston Common, as many thousands came together last Thursday to witness. But I think for the mayor and all 711,000 residents of the city, it was also an important opportunity to show or really reestablish our commitment to the friendship and the partnership between the city of Boston and all of our friends in Canada, despite whatever's happening at the federal level. Um, in 2022, our name was changed. So rather than the Office of Economic Development, we're now Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. And the reason the mayor changed the name was to ensure that we're not just making sure everyone has access or that we are creating opportunities for everyone, but also that we're creating on-ramps for those opportunities. And this type of event where we are putting folks together to network, to have conversation, to hear how others are navigating their industry. It's another important way that we're doing that, this knowledge sharing event. But in the city, we also are providing concierge services. So our business strategy office, which is led by Aaliyah Forrest, who's joining this conversation today and will be here throughout. We provide services to connect entrepreneurs and residents and others to one another to make sure that if you decide to make Boston one of your new or next locations, that you face no barriers, but that you have a seamless entry into our marketplace. As the economic development chief, I would be remiss if I don't just talk up Boston just on the economic side. So JLL, which is a noted commercial real estate entity and research firm. They put out a report recently that showed that Boston ranks as the third largest innovation geography globally, that we lead nationally in adults with four-year degrees, that we're ranked as the world's #1 life science cluster, that we are a top 5 global AI hub, attracting a lot of investment and partners across the ecosystem. Now, even though I'm here to herald those figures and love talking about those, I think what's equally important to share with all of our friends in Canada, and I think would be double clicked on by those coming from Boston, is that in addition to the ecosystem you'll be immersed in, is also the city that you would be embraced by. I think the reason why Boston remains the human capital, as Mayor Wu continues to say, is because of our neighborhoods and the fact that this is a place that people want to live and operate in. Last thing I'll say is I'm very happy that the name of this program is Business in Tandem. Tandem meaning when two or more things are working and moving in the same direction. And that could not be more true than the relationship and the values and the direction of the city of Montreal and the city of Boston and all of our partners in both cities. There's a proverb that I've taken with me everywhere I go. I know that the mayor has used it as well, that if you want 1 year of prosperity, grow grain. If you want 10 years of prosperity, grow trees. But if you want 100 years of prosperity, grow people. And I think that as we're thinking about how we're moving in tandem, certainly the fact that all of us share these values of innovation, of sustainable future, we're looking forward to building a better world and a prosperous community for generations to come. So thank you all for being here. We're looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Segun, for these kind welcome remarks. Now, let's kick off with the brief overview of the cybersecurity landscape in Montreal and Boston. And we'll start with a look at Montreal's cybersecurity ecosystem. It's my pleasure to give the floor to Pascal Fortin, CEO of CyberEco. Pascal?
Hello. So welcome everyone. So Montreal, Boston have a lot in common in terms of being very strong cities for academia. We have a lot of things in common. I love Boston. I had the privilege of having quite a few private equity investors from Boston in my past company, which we may hear from today. So very briefly, I just want to tell you what the CyberEco organization is. So we're a nonprofit organization, but we are first and foremost an association of members. Large industry are banks, insurance companies, huge utilities companies like Hydro-Québec, for example, and pretty much all the types of verticals we have in Montreal and Quebec. And our mission is to co-develop hardware, software, framework standards, and share in capabilities when it comes to cybersecurity, data protection, resilience, and pretty much everything that's cybersecurity adjacent. So we do a lot of projects that range from the tens of thousands of dollars to the millions of dollars. where our members invest people, time, and knowledge, intellectual property into these kinds of things. We also have an arm that's on the economic development side in partnership with the City of Montreal and the Government of Quebec, where we have currently about 42 active startups and scale-ups in cybersecurity, some of which you may hear about today. And many of them have crossed the Rubicon into the US already. Some of them haven't. And obviously, there's quite a bit of opportunity, whether that's for working together, obviously acquiring software and hardware, but co-licensing, acquisitions, mergers, all of these things. So very easy to do business in Montreal and Quebec and Canada, as you may already know. So large pool of members. This is kind of like an overview of some of the logos you'll find within the membership. So great point of interaction if you want to understand what the Montreal market, Quebec, Canadian market can offer, level of interest for solutions, barriers to entry, what is expected in terms of compliance, business readiness, for depending on the sector. For example, the Canadian banking industry is much more regulated than the one in the US, so you have a lot of different obstacles that you might not find. It's a lot easier to sign a contract with JP Morgan Chase than it is with RBC. And I know that from experience. So we also group academia and government. So all of the universities and research centers flow in through us when it comes to cybersecurity. They come to be inspired and learn and interact with industry, and also to propose their various offerings. We co-develop essentially the needs analysis that leads to program development with the major universities that have cybersecurity bachelor's and master's programs. Little preview of some of the startups and scale-ups there. Montreal's been a major Canadian cybersecurity hub with many industry leaders for quite a few years now. We've produced companies like GoSecure, but also quite a few like Above Security became a part of Hitachi Security. We tend to sell our crown jewels, so mostly to Americans, but sometimes other countries as well, such as Japan in this case. And what that means is that there's quite a bit, and I'm not going to go through all of this stuff, but there's quite a bit of talent and know-how in cybersecurity within the Montreal ecosystem. Google cybersecurity team primarily resides in Montreal. That's a lot of the top Mandian people are in Montreal as well. Many of them come from GoSecure and then became part of that team. That's same with a lot of large vendors like Trend Micro and McAfee and other big brands that have research teams, a lot of research and product development teams hidden in Montreal, the hidden gems, we could say. And there's quite a few organizations you might want to be aware of. CyberEco obviously is I would say almost one-stop shop in terms of getting acquainted with the ecosystem, understanding what to do, how to get involved. We have a lot of American vendors that are already part of the ecosystem. They play a different role. Obviously, if you're an American software vendor, you're not going to come in and give your IP for those collaboration projects, but you're going to support in different ways, and those are ways to interact and build what I would like to call social capital within the ecosystem, and also to have the connection opportunities that are very, very valuable, difficult to get with just usual business development initiatives. So we have the Canadian Cybersecurity Center, whose only regional hub outside of Ottawa, our capital, is in Montreal in our CyberEco offices. So that's a point of interaction with federal government, and especially for critical infrastructure that is based in Montreal, because we are hosting them. And then you have other groups. You'll find all the usual chapters like the ISACAs, the OWASPs, and things like that. And you have more regional things like the ASIM, which is the Montreal Association of Cybersecurity Professionals, essentially. It's a quite a diverse group with about 200 members, and they meet together. So that's also a point of interaction, possibly for American vendors. Not going to go through all that, but there's obviously a lot to be said about that combination of having a huge pool of qualified engineers that are operating at the same level as those produced in the US and the Ivy League, and it's a great opportunity because we cost less, obviously. The salaries are a little lower in Montreal, but you don't have to compromise on quality. You may have to bear some of our French accents, but other than that, it's pretty good. And you may have to tolerate some Habs jerseys as well once in a while, but that's part of life. Um, Briefly, we also have a cluster of academia that's growing. It's called the Institute for Cybersecurity and Cyber Resilience. It's if you are looking more on the research, academic research, and capability development on that front. There's a great network now of 60 research fellows within that group, and that's something that can be interesting. Some professors, and I'm going to stop there because it's really long and we could talk about this all day, but this is just a quick overview of the ecosystem. We do have our own, private equity and investment capability, but it's much more limited than what you'd find in Boston. So that's probably a place where you have things better on that side of the fence. That's it. That's my little spiel.
Thank you, Pascal, for this insightful presentation. We have the question period. If you have any questions at the end, we can address them to Pascal too. So now we'll explore the Boston cybersecurity ecosystem with John Petrozelli, director of the Mass Cyber Center. John, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Rania. Did you want me to put up the slides, or are you going to share the slides? I can put them up. Okay.
Go ahead. Or I can.
Yep. No, I can I'll just pull them up here. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is John Petrozelli. I'm the director of the Mass Cyber Center. This is our mission and our core functions, but we are a quasi-state entity in Massachusetts. What that means is we're a .org versus a .gov. We are part of the Massachusetts Technology Collaborative, which is 7 different divisions that help Massachusetts across a variety of different programs. Most recently, our NEMC Hub, which is a Northeast Microelectronics Coalition, and our AI Hub, which was just formulated to help. And again, part of why we're really growing in AI in Massachusetts. The Cyber Center works across all of our different divisions and across the state to try to pull together different stakeholders from the private and public sectors. We look at what are the threats out there, what are the resources that everybody has to be able to pull together to try to support each other in Massachusetts. And so our focus is strengthening cyber resiliency, providing resources, one of which is our grant program. I'll talk about that shortly. And then convening cybersecurity stakeholders, which is really big, and we've had some really great successes come out of that in terms of work products. And we have actually a incident response card game that we created, which is a free resource for people on our website they could use to practice with their executive team going through an incident, a cybersecurity incident, an insider threat incident, or a business continuity incident at the moment. So those are different scenarios that we have up there. And then one of the very important things we're doing in Massachusetts is building our talent pipeline. And we're doing this through our SOC and Range initiative. I'll explain that shortly. But I think it's really what separates us from a lot of other states in the United States in terms of the success we're having with our Security Operations Center and Cyber Range initiative. You could find more information about that on our website. But what we're doing is creating a pipeline of students that are not only coming from community colleges and state schools and from under-resourced or underprivileged communities, but also people who are coming into the United States maybe with a history of being an IT employee somewhere else, and then retraining into cybersecurity, and then getting jobs in Massachusetts. So we've had some really good success with that. We have this ACE talent program that I have on the slide here. We're basically building alternative pipelines to community college and four-year institutions. So we've got those traditional pipelines, but we're also looking at targeting high school youth to try to bring them into cybersecurity jobs, so that if they want to move directly into cybersecurity from high school graduation, they can do that. And again, those retraining programs that are bringing people from other careers into cybersecurity to really grow our tent. And what we're hoping to create is a post AI tier 2 and tier 3 SOC analyst that's capable of three-dimensional thinking in this type of very complicated threat environment. So Massachusetts is a really great ecosystem. We already talked about Boston, and Segun did a great job talking about the capabilities and the growth that we're experiencing in Boston. Massachusetts as a whole is experiencing that growth too in major industries. Part of that is the governor's willingness and preparation to recognize that there's a lot of different talent and workforce needs, and she's positioning resources for Massachusetts to be able to take advantage of the capabilities Massachusetts ecosystem has in their in the different global leadership we have in different types of industries. Most recently, the governor launched a SHIELD program to support our defense industrial base in Massachusetts as well. We have very informed and engaged state leaders that work very hard on cybersecurity policy and programs to help out. We're creating a grant program, or we created a grant program last year that provides up to $25,000 for a small business or a nonprofit to take advantage of our student training SOC, Security Operations Center, in partner with a global company that's a global cybersecurity company, not on the call, so I won't mention them, but really a really good program that's training students while also protecting real world computers. We have incredible companies in Massachusetts, and we have two of them on the call today. In Fortinet, who has been a real supporter in our ecosystem, helping our municipalities and small businesses, and then in Rapid7, who has literally provided space for the Mass Cyber Center SOC and Range Initiative in Boston. So we actually have a security operations center sitting in Rapid7 space that they donated to our nonprofit SOC, Cyber Trust Massachusetts. So both places have put their money where their mouth is. Rapid7's been a huge partner with us, and again, thank you to Corey Thomas for that. And it's helping our students to be able to commute to Boston, work in a SOC, and then commute home using our mass transit system in Massachusetts. A little more information on our ecosystem. So we've got approximately 330 cybersecurity businesses in Massachusetts. This is 2024 data from our one of our divisions called the Innovation Institute. Approximately 120,000 cybersecurity employees throughout the state. $8.9 billion in revenue in 2024 across the ecosystem. 8.5 billion in I'm sorry, 8.95 billion in revenue, 8.5 billion in market cap, and about 16.98 million in total startup investment. And we, as someone had mentioned on the call, I think Pascal had mentioned, we've got some really incredible venture capital and startup company capital in Massachusetts. A lot of those, one really good relationship we have in cyber is with the country of Israel and Massachusetts, where we've got a lot of startups that have started in Israel or come from Israel and have found a home in the Boston area to support them. Last thing I'll mention is we try to focus our programs to defend against three threat vectors. The first one is that human element, social engineering, insider threats, identity attacks, really working on trying to help the people side of people, process, and technology. working on trying to help people with policies, working on trying to help people with cybersecurity awareness. And then, of course, system intrusions, which would be your ransomware, your malware. And thank you to Bill on the call, who was talking about technical debt and the lack of like secure by design software, or the debt that can be created by not maybe negligence in terms of how software is being designed or updated. Nowadays, there's a lot of places that are just using AI to update code, and that's creating other vulnerabilities that then get introduced as 0 days. So, you know, technical debt is a growing problem, and Bill from Fortinet wanted to point that out to me, so I appreciate that, Bill. In doing the research the last couple of days, I've seen it's definitely in different reports a growing trend. And then lastly is web application attacks. So those would be like internet-facing vulnerabilities that could be on your hardware that's facing the internet, like your routers, firewalls, servers, if they're on the internet or facing the internet, and then also your Office 365, Google Workspace type environments. So looking at trying to make sure that everything is patched, and limiting what is communicating outside of your networks, to take advantage of, or that threat actors are trying to take advantage of. So those are some of the threats that we're seeing in our environment, and some of our solutions, including our grant program, we put in place to try to protect against those threats. Renia, that's all I have as far as slides, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, John. So, with that being said, now we have a few minutes for questions. So, don't be shy, raise your hand or type your questions in the chat. And I'm pretty sure that our experts will be happy to answer. I do not see a few questions, but I have one question for you. What recommendations would you give to an SME seeking to establish or grow its activities, most in demand in Boston or in Montreal? So you can start, John, and then Pascal.
I was gonna give it up to the
Okay.
Montreal fan. So go ahead, Pascal. You can start.
Sure. Well, I think unfortunately that's a question that needs to be broken down into, because what you need to do to be successful in Montreal is going to be probably a little different than what you would do in Boston. So it mostly depends where you're from. So assuming that you're from Boston, one of the typical mistakes that I've seen. So I'll talk about mistake avoidance first. Is to come in expecting let's say the success that you've had regionally in the US be kind of taken for granted. So you come in and you think you're at a certain level because you've had success regionally, but we haven't heard of you. We've heard of the large top 5, top 10 players, those that get to spend a couple $1 million at RSA conference every year. And we haven't heard of the mid-layer or mid-tier players at all. And there's so much market saturation that you actually have to build your brand up in Canada. So realize that you will need to create awareness first. You will need to do some demand generation at the most basic level. So it's really a different market. Even though we're next to each other, they're almost like horizontal, except when you reach the absolute A player category. So too many times I've seen people kind of expect a certain credibility because they've reached, let's say, $50 million of sales in the US, which is like a very good mid-tier figure. But we haven't heard of you. So please don't come in with that kind of approach, because you'll spend a lot on business development that's appropriate where you would have a known brand and kind of a value proposition that already is known to your buyer, and that'll be a lot of wasted money. So you have to take it a notch back. On the other side, Montreal going to Boston, I mean, good job already choosing Boston over other markets. Boston is great. The people there tend to have a compatible worldview, and it works pretty well. And also congratulations on not seeing the US as a single unified market that is the same across coast to coast, because it isn't. That's mistake number one. The Boston market is fairly tightly knit, so people know each other there. It's a relatively small city. It's much smaller than Montreal. So you have to be able to build relationships first before I would say committing to a large sales team. So you should work with organizations. Perhaps the Mass Cyber Center is a place. Make your presence known, start networking, and you should focus on one or two influencer clients first. A big chunk at a time is probably going to be very costly and very ineffective, because again, it's such a tight-knit community. If you come in and you look like maybe you're a little bit too hungry, that's not going to go very well in general. So I've found that catering to a specific vertical works well. We work mostly in the private equity, finance, and insurance space in Boston and New England. And once you have one or two customers in that space, you build up that credibility, and that's worked well, at least for me when I was there.
Thank you,
Hopefully that
Pascal.
answers a little bit, but we could talk about this for days.
John, over to you now.
Yeah, thanks, Pascal. You represented Boston well, so thank you. It is, it can be a tough environment to move into for the first time, but the state recognizes that it's important to really provide that support when a company is considering coming to Massachusetts. So, right away, the governor's programs under economic development, they launched the business front door, so small businesses can go to the Massachusetts website, look at the business front door, and that's supposed to be a one-stop shop where businesses can essentially look at that site and look at different ways that their businesses can grow with support from the state. You already heard about the incredible opportunities that Boston provides itself. So, and we have Zagun on the call, so that's a great contact to have if you're looking at having a business or moving a business to Boston. So there's a huge opportunity there as well. And those state resources can help to introduce you to the environment. If you are, the new kid in town or the new kid, I would liken it to the new kid in high school. Like these are your guidance counselors. These are the people who can help you, and maybe the popular kids in school who know the way around. Take advantage of the Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion in Boston, in the business front door, and our Secretary and Office of Economic Development in Massachusetts. Definitely two ways to do that. And then at Mass Cyber Center, we have, you're always welcome to reach out to us. We have our different Mass Tech divisions that work in different sectors. And then also, we have our grant program. It's part of the business front door, but you can look at that separately. That's for Massachusetts businesses. It's basically any small business under 1,500 employees can apply to that program, and it's essentially provides the first year of up to $25,000 for an entity that's looking to try to improve their cybersecurity to tie into a very good SOC that we have, where our students are learning, backed up by world-class experts on cybersecurity. So if you have other questions, we can take them now.
Thank you, John. We have another question is, how do Boston and Montreal differ in terms of cybersecurity market maturity? Are staff well educated in terms of best practices? Is cybersecurity a priority in the budget when meeting companies? Is it easy to articulate cybersecurity concepts? So,
I'll take that one first. So in Montreal and in Quebec in general, you'll find that people are aware, they know. There's again the technology savviness is very very strong. That's not the issue, but the adoption is a little slower, and the willingness to spend big bucks is not as strong. And the reason is we don't have as much litigation in Canada. So the threat of a lawsuit is not as strong in Canada as it is in the US. So that creates a different culture. And companies are more risk tolerant in Canada in general. You'll find that. And perhaps a little bit too over reliant on cyber insurance to save them when something goes wrong. And so the sales cycles are definitely longer. The decision making is not quite as quick. Budget allocation, you can, the budgets are there. We have a lot of larger organizations like our banks that have massive cybersecurity budgets, but the typical enterprise, they have to fight for their cyber budget quite a bit, and you will need to expect typically 3 months to 6 months from socializing your solution, if there's an appetite for that solution, and then to closing eventually a deal. It's very rare that unless the customer happens to be shopping for exactly what you have to offer right now, that you're able to close a deal in 30 days or even 60 days. So that's kind of important to understand when you're looking at the sales cycle in Canada.
I know we're at time to like move to the next section here, but I'll give a quick answer too on this in terms of I think that Pascal described the situation there, and I think Boston's very similar. I would add in, the different compliance regimes that we have in the United States that can make things more difficult for businesses as a whole, but those are like national level compliance regimes, unless you're living in California where those are state level. Massachusetts tracks, employees, and they want to make sure that its customers or the residents are protected, but the state level controls are not as stringent for small business as like California might be. However, what I would say is part of the reason that we have the human element as the first threat in our environment is because culturally, I don't think it really matters whether you're in Canada or the United States. It's always hard to get people to spend money on cybersecurity, because they're like, well, we're not going to get hit. Especially small businesses that are like, I'm too small to be hit by a ransomware group or something, and that's a major problem. The culture that we see in terms of people not wanting to spend money and then having to spend a lot more money after they've been hit or going out of business. So. I'll just kind of leave it at that. We can talk more in the general Q&A afterwards, but Renia, back to you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Pascal. So now we're going to move to the business panel introduction. Before we start the business panel discussion, each panelist will briefly introduce themselves and their companies. So we're going to start with Julien Turcot, Senior Vice President, Sales and Marketing at Go Secure.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to collaborate on that topic. It's super interesting. So I'm Julien Turcot in French, basically born and raised in Montreal. I've been in cybersecurity for 17 years now, so been through a lot. I've got a couple of slides, if it's okay to share, Renia.
Yes, go ahead.
Cool. Thank you. I'll do that. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I won't go into full mode, just for a quick overview. Basically, as I said, been in cyber for quite a long time now. I've moved from the very technical world, where I used to be a pen tester long time ago, where I did discover myself as being more practical in sales. And eventually met a good friend of mine, Pascal, and then we moved to a very different world in the entrepreneurial world. So yeah, big fan of the community. I'm contributing to a large event in Montreal called GoSec. And I also decided to start a podcast while everyone in COVID decided to start baking bread. I decided to go and host a podcast. So a bit different type of engagement, but super fun. A big fan of it now. And yeah, I'm a PowerPoint survivor. I know everyone's moving to Canva, but I'm still very happy with the PowerPoint of this world. So who is GoSeeker? We have about 3,000 customer all across the world, but mostly North America, I'd say. We have a split close to 50-50 Canadian and US market. We are 160 employees. We're protecting a lot of data point, I'd say. And yeah, we've been in business for 20 years with a mix of the good GoSecure legacy through what we are today. Yeah, I'm not going to describe the actual world of cyber. It's quite a challenging space right now with the evolving threat. Yes, and also the growing frequency and the speed of the targeting using AI and all of the security gaps that we see in the world and in that space, right? So it's hard to prioritize. A quick overview of GoSeeker. We're using one slide to describe pretty much everything. I know there's a lot of stuff here, but basically what we're trying to explain here is that we come from the security advisory world on the right side, the red side, the offensive security started like long time ago doing pen tests when the word pen test was not a word as per se, and even cybersecurity wasn't called cybersecurity, it was infosec at the time. Anyway, we moved to a larger company with a broader portfolio, including the defensive inputs as well, where we do have IP. So we have registered patent on the EDR and IDR for endpoint detection and response and inbox detection and response. Long story short, we've integrated all of those things together to offer one single pane of view to our clients. Again, I'm not going to go into details of the mechanics here, but we are super, eco-friendly. We can integrate large type of different companies here. We know that our clients have been investing times and effort into their IT. And so instead of telling them to rip and replace everything, we are integrating everything within one single pane of view, which we call the Titan dashboard. And again, very strong in the services world, pen tests, phishing, compliance, and yeah, world-class pen tests. We are super, super passionate about pen tests. Not only we do a lot for professional services, but also our team are also, strong in the community for, ACFest, which is an event in Quebec City, and NordSec, which is an event in Montreal. It's both, large capture the flag event, and our team love to talk about. And again, I like what you mentioned earlier, John, around the gamification around incident response. The card deck game, I'll definitely go there and download the game. Sounds super great. And to that point, we do a lot of incident response ourselves. So it's a very, very strong practice that we have. We do from the fear to recovery, restoration, and all the good stuff that goes with it. And yeah, that's what I had to introduce myself and go secure, Rania. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Julianne. So now we're gonna move to the next one. It will be Mark Lavoie, Director, United States Sales from Coach, from Montreal too. So Mark, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you. First, I'd like to thank everyone today for being here and for both chambers for putting this on. This is my first experience of this, so this is pretty cool. That being said, as Rainier said, I'm Mark Lavoie. I'm head of U.S. sales and building it. Cohash is a Canadian company that was founded in 2018 out of Quebec. I'm happy to say that I live in the actual greater Boston area, and we have since moved our U.S. headquarters and operations Kendall Square, so real close to Boston. So we're right in Kendall Square. What Cohash does and solves for is we give enterprises the guardrails for safe AI adoption by giving you granular visibility and actionability to all your unstructured data at rest, so your riskiest data at rest on your file servers and endpoints. So we really help ensure the safety of AI So that, everyone's biggest concern with AI right now is, okay, they're not opposed to it, but what if data gets into the large language model that we can't get out, right? So whether it's your PCI, your HIPAA, it could be IP, so on and so forth. So that's what we do.
Thank you, Mark. Now we're gonna move to the next one. So we're gonna move to Boston. Nicholas has major account manager from Boston and Bill Carter, public sector cybersecurity strategist. They are both from Fortinet. The floor is all yours.
Hey, thanks, Raina. Um, I do have a PowerPoint I wanted to share. Do I just share my screen?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Let me see here.
We can do it
You-
if you
you-
prefer, Nicholas. We have it.
Sure,
Yeah, go
sure,
ahead.
yeah,
Don't do
yeah.
that.
If you could, thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so thanks, Raina. Good morning, everyone. My name's Nick Haas. I'm a account manager here, working with the city of Boston for Fortinet. I am joined by Bill Carter. I think Bill is. I don't see him. He's on some. He's on another call too as well. But both of us were excited to be, asked to join this. To give you a little background on myself, I have been with Fortinet now for 5 months. Prior to Fortinet, I have been at Google, and I have worked at Tyler Technologies. I've been working with the public sector for over 30 years, and have covered everything from SIS to SaaS systems to network security and cybersecurity. Tell you a little bit about Fortinet. We are the number one market leader for the country in cybersecurity. We are number one in network security, number one in OT security, secure device WAN, SecOps, and we are the fastest growing unified SASE leader. We've been profitable since our IPO in 2009. When we went public, we've been in business for over 25 years, getting close to a million lifetime customers. And we have been working with AI and machine learning for over 15 years on our sixth generation, and have more patents than our top five competitors combined. With over 15,000 employees, working with over 100,000 partners globally, and we are publicly traded on both the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. If you could advance, Raina, please. Thank you. We're also very, very excited for being named now multiple years to the Forbes Most Trusted Cybersecurity Company. 80% of the Fortune 100 companies in the United States trust us to protect their largest critical infrastructure. We were the only cybersecurity company. We were number 7 on their list of all companies, but we were the only cybersecurity company named to Forbes list out of the top 100 companies they named. And we dominate in all the top sectors, in terms of financial, business services, retail, critical infrastructure, technology, and telco. If you could advance, please.
Sure.
Thank you. A big reason that we've enjoyed a lot of this success and why we've grown to this level is really being that pioneer in protecting AI and cybersecurity. We've leveraged AI and machine learning through what we call FortiGuard Labs. It is our threat intelligence. We get this intelligence from working with over 496 million plus points. These are firewalls, I should back up and tell you that more than half of the firewalls shipped globally today are Fortinet firewalls. We take that threat intelligence that we've learned throughout time, through protecting emails, endpoints, sandbox files, and we filter that through AI and machine learning to automate that response, right? And to update our entire system. So we provide that real-time automation because we're seeing threats around the entire globe. And we feed that threat intel to protect all of our products. We help shape the future of threat intelligence when it comes to Interpol and MITRE and the Cyber Threat Alliance. We help the World Economic Forum. And like I said, Interpol. So we're seeing these threats in real time globally, and we're responding to these in real time globally. And we have developed our AI patents now with this at a record pace, with more AI patents than any company. Could you please? Yeah, thank you. When it comes to looking at both the city of Montreal and Boston and what we are doing between both, I kind of looked at the state of Massachusetts as a whole too as well, and then what we're doing in Canada. 80+% of the firewalls that are shipped in Canada are Fortinet firewalls. In the city of Montreal, we help protect the city not only with our firewalls, our secure device WAN, but we also provide secure Wi-Fi for all the public. We secure the water services department with their IT and their operational technology. We're working with Toronto today, protecting their city's data center. They're going through a massive microsegmentation project there. In Quebec, we secure the city's water district's OT with our ruggedized products. We protect more than 100 sites with our SD-WAN in Quebec. We do provide public secure Wi-Fi, and we cover all switches within the city. In Halifax, we're securing over 300 of the traffic lights with our 40 extender products, where we provide them with emergency connectivity kits for their field operations for emergencies. And we provide secure Wi-Fi for public transportation, police, and fire. Throughout the state of Massachusetts, we're protecting the MTA, the 911 system, public transportation with secure Wi-Fi again, and critical infrastructure. In the city of Boston, we're working with police and at Boston Police with our FortiGate firewalls. If you could advance. And looking where we're growing in the state of Massachusetts with technology, I've mentioned the Department of Transportation, the MTA, Lottery, Gaming, Inspector General, the 911 Center, the Office of the State Auditor, Mass Housing and Finance. And you can see we do this from, we've got about 80 products in our portfolio, 40 analyzers, switches, wireless, SASE, and FortiGate firewalls. And we are working and building on that with protecting our footprint throughout the state, both improving their SOC teams and helping them respond to threats. So glad to participate in this panel, and thank you for inviting us to be here.
Thank you, Nicholas. Now let's move to Rapid7. Let me introduce Sabine Malik, Vice President, Global Government Affairs and Public Policy. Sabine, the floor is all yours.
Hello, thank you guys so much for having me and Rapid7 represent. I think, as most folks know here, Rapid7 is based in Boston, Massachusetts. We're a very proud, kind of Massachusetts-based company. Very excited always to represent Boston because, as most people know, Boston is very rich when it comes to bus cybersecurity ecosystem, both in terms of, as our colleague John and others have mentioned, in terms of the state being so invested in cyber. But more importantly, one of the main reasons for us to think about why we headquartered where we did almost now 20 years ago was because of the fact that really the cyber health of the ecosystem and the talent that we were finding in Boston was bar to none. But that being said, Reina, I did also want to share just 2 slides, if that's okay.
Sure.
So let me share that with you in terms of where we're at. So, all right. So, one of the things before just also talking about the idea that, we are Boston based is, talking about the ecosystem related to Boston and Montreal and Canada writ large. And, we've been finding, and we've had, multiple conversations now with clients and customers just talking about the richness that's the ecosystem between the US and particularly Toronto and Montreal. Montreal, again, we find, the ability of the students and the cyber talent to be wonderful. And so we do think that this corridor between kind of these two cities and everything it represents in between is really unique from that perspective. And as someone who kind of spends their day looking at sort of also geopolitical risk and looking at the risk landscape for our more than 11,000 plus customers, I do have to say that I think, having a neighbor like Canada when it comes to these things aligned on, looking at the world when it comes to the sort of cyber threats that we're facing and Canadian government and Canadian ministers that, look at these issues in the same way. It's really heartening, to always have colleagues that, think about these issues both from a pragmatic perspective, but also thinking about business risk. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why we're in the business that we're in. And I find that to be really a heartening measure of how I think both the cyber customer ecosystem, even though there are challenges, customers acquire, procure a little differently in both countries, but we do find that robustness really, really is helpful. So let me with that then talk a little bit about, kind of my day-to-day in Rapid7. Like I said, I'm our Vice President, Chief Policy Officer. Most of my stakeholders are governments and partners across the globe that are looking at mitigating cyber risk through policy, through partnerships, and then working through the various different ecosystem players, even open source and community players, on how we can think about cyber policy and the rest of the issues and tools and levers that we have globally to be able to then create a business environment, a cyber environment that allows businesses to thrive. So Rapid7 is really in the business of looking to companies to help them monitor 100% of their attack surface in real time. I think one of the things that a lot of folks think a lot about when it comes to this issue is that we have, and sorry about that, vigilance with regards to a unified risk response. We really think about risk management and this kind of idea around CTEM really, really thoughtfully in terms of designing your process and your program. I think a lot of cyber program owners think kind of in a way around their architecture, but don't think about just the architecture being in responding to the risks that they have with regards to why their company's business is going to be of interest for cyber hackers and cyber threat actors. And what does that really mean in terms of thinking about managing a risk and then managing everything that's around that risk and then being able to view your assets to be able to mitigate those risks. So Rapid7 is really in the business of helping people both do that in terms of our MDR response, MDR products, and then also more importantly, making sure that those businesses that can't do it themselves have a very, I would say, partner that is not only thinking about their business, but thinking about all the ways in which their business can be attacked globally. So we do global managed services. These are some of the offerings that we have, and we really think about data collection here as really the core part of how anybody in the modern sort of digital data ecosystem should be thinking about why and how they can think about their responses and about thinking about their risk profile, which if you don't understand your risk, it's really hard for you to be able to build a very robust cyber program. And these are some of our offerings, again, in terms of what we think about in terms of our product enrichment integrations, our commercial and public intelligence that feeds that machine. And then, as we have lots of different elements here, thinking about our community intelligence, predictive learning, machine learning algorithms, and many, many things that we also have been pioneers on. So I'll stop with that since we might be running a little bit over. And Reina, over back to you.
Thank you so much, Sabine. So we're going to move to the business panel discussion. And we're going to dive in 5 questions to share this company's experiences, successes, and challenges. So let's start with the first question. Could you share a concrete example of a cybersecurity project or initiative that your company exported to Montreal or Boston and the lessons learned? So who would like to jump in? I don't know, Nicholas, maybe you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, Raina. I could think of a few, and during my slides, you might have seen some of those. Where we're protecting the city's OT. Um, you know, we're, where we've helped the city of. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me grab my. Um, where we have helped the city of Montreal, right, with protecting their water services and their IT and OT, that convergence of the IT and OT, that is a use case that can transcend really uh, any city for the most part, right? Um, IT and OT and that convergence is the same. We need to protect their SCADA systems, all of that, all of these sensors and that they're using, and how that communicates back with their central hub. And that is a use case that we see that can really be used across, any city. Now, what you'll see a challenge to something like that would be when they have those devices air gapped, where they don't, or maybe they don't connect some of those sensors, or they've got those sensors kind of putting information outside of their central, where they keep data centrally located, and that would be a risk. And they want to leverage that data. Obviously, they want to control that data, and they want to use it. But the problem is, if it's not secure, if it's not coming through, it can be hacked, right? The bad actors can get into that data. So the challenge there really is getting those systems integrated, and you're dealing with multiple products and multiple vendors and those integration points, and that's a challenge very often that we face. So that's an example I could think of.
Thank you so much. So maybe
Maybe
Julian, go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can continue here, and then maybe more around the business side of the story, if you will. We do business on both sides, right? So we have Montrealers trying to sell in Boston, and I say sell, but more establishing relation and creating new business on both sides. And when we're trying to export from Montreal to Boston, that corridor is super relevant to us because we're for same time zone, we're in the same side of North America, if you will. So there's a lot of affinity that are in reciprocity in terms of business. So it's not easy, but it's faster, I'd say. So that reduce a lot the sales cycle by doing business with places that corridor is already existing. So we've been protecting some organization in Boston with our SOC from Montreal, and I must admit, it's there's no aversion, or we could have thought that, oh well, they will see the Montreal company trying to come and help us with cybersecurity in Boston. That make no sense, but it's not the case. Absolutely not. We can see that there's a lot of willing to do such a thing, and I don't recall having Americans saying, "Oh, our data is going to be hosted in Canada." Anyway, in our experience, that didn't happen yet. Even if we have a super compliance that we need to be respecting, like SOC 2 Type 2, and or all of the new stuff that is happening. And I see news not so new, but CMMC, and there's compliance that sometimes you would think that would prevent us from doing such a thing, but it's not in our experience. And the other way around, we've seen a lot, right? So Boston doing business with Montreal and even larger Canadian, Eastern Canada, as per se. One thing that we see make things move faster for sure. It's really 101, I'd say, but it's to have a champion local. If you don't have that, it's harder, right? Versus if you have someone that do have already your buy-in and is willing to fight for you and will be making sure that things are progressing. it's a huge game changer. So as long as you have someone representing your interest and making sure that this relation is going to move forward, this make things move faster. Otherwise, you're stuck into a sales cycle that can take, and for us, our managed services is normally 6 to 9 months sales cycle, where selling services like pen test or smaller advisory services will be from 2 to 3 months, right? Where incident response is from 1 or 2 hours, right? The client breach is calling, we're helping them, it's converting super fast. But when you have a champion, those sales cycle are reducing a lot. So that would be my advice when moving forward on that front, is making sure that you have a local person. And if you don't, well, Pascal and John mentioned that at the very beginning, you have those ecosystem already in place. So versus trying to step on anyone else's toes, align with these community, right? So Cyber Echo can help you making sure that you do understand that business before trying to reach out to client, and same for Cyber Mass. So I mean, those are super important things to consider when trying to export within one place to the other.
Thank you for the sharing. And since I'm looking at the time, so I'm gonna jump to the next question to leave Sabine and Mark jump in the next one. So the next question is, what challenges did you face in developing, deploying, or scaling your exported cybersecurity services in Montreal or Boston, and how did you overcome them? Sabine, I don't know if you would like
Yeah,
to.
I'm happy to jump in. I mean, I think one of the first ones that we faced in terms of, again, thinking about partnerships with just the talent pipeline. I mean, I think both markets still face a little bit of a cyber talent shortage in specific areas. Again, it's not overall, but I think there are specific areas. So we've been thinking along a lot around, how can we make sure that in terms of when it comes to our view on partnerships with universities, we do many of them. We know what should we be really thinking about with regards to, again, kind of the emphasis between Boston and Montreal. So that's one. I also think when it comes to, regulatory alignment between Canada and the US, and, particularly thinking about Quebec, I mean, I think there's always this kind of state to federal level distinction that we have to think a little bit about. And so, we were building a lot of our regional specific controls and making sure that people are looking at the compliance suite and making sure that our customers also have access to that. And then again, someone else touched on this a little bit, but I think, there is a little bit of a difference between how customers procure between the two markets. And so I think it's a little bit making sure that folks that are talking to customers are localized, they understand the local preferences, and they have that understanding right from the get-go. So Reina, those are some, I would say, concrete examples of what we've been facing in the short term to near term.
Thank you, Sabine. I don't know if Mark, would you like to add something to this?
No, I think Sabine did a great job. I would just echo one of the challenges that I've had is just educating, being in charge of, U.S. sales and building that market out, and then going after not only local governments, but federal governments and aerospace and defense clients, and critical infrastructure is just, the education, with the team up in Canada for, getting FedRAMP, all the control points. And then if we get that here, then it trumps, all their regulations up there. So that's been, a little bit of a challenge. I've done it in the prior life, but just getting alignment there.
Thank you, Mark. I don't know if Nicholas or if you want to add something quick. It's
Sure.
good.
Yeah, Reina, I would add, yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what other panelists are saying about having that local presence. One way we overcame that at Fortinet is to have our point of presence centers, our POP centers, globally positioned. So, we've got hundreds of POP centers. They're in those local markets, so that we've got staff there. We've got people on the ground that actually can, know what's going on locally and respond to it. So we centralize our governance, right? And then we get feedback from those local presences.
Thank you, Nicholas. If Julian doesn't have to add something else, we're going to move to the other one.
All good.
Okay, perfect. So the third question is, how does your company adapt to emerging cybersecurity trends, such as cloud security, data protection, or regulatory compliance? Would you like to jump in, Julian?
Yeah, sure. So basically, that's a super good question. Honestly, it's moving so fast, and especially in cyber. I mean, we have to comply to, and I mentioned that SOC 2 Type 2 is one that is super important. We see others, and depends on where you want to tackle the business. If it's health with HIPAA, if it's energy with NERC. There's a lot of compliance and regulatory, trades and goods, and anyway, there's a lot. And for us, it's not always easy, although there's some translation sometime from one to the other that you can replicate. At Go Secure, we have in-house people specialized in compliance. So of course, having the right people that knows exactly how to map those control through the framework and adapt to that, it's easier. And of course, as long as we stay within the same set of U.S. and Canada exchange, it's a bit, I will not say easy, because it's not. It's also there's a lot of money to invest and time on those regulatory. But being on top of that, show the client that they can trust us, because we have the right things in place. And in cyber, I mean, it's the first step. You have to establish trust to be able to move forward with that business. So super, super important. How do we adapt and follow that? As I said, I think having someone in-house versus like having someone, a third party, do that is well, eventually you'll have to have someone externally, but do the groundwork, I'd say, is super important to do it in-house. Yeah.
Thank you for the answer, Julian. Who else would like to jump in? Sabine, Nicolas, Mark?
Yeah, I would say, Reina, for us, I think a lot of this has to do with, thinking a lot from the perspective of where are we with regards to our understanding of emerging trends, and where do we get that kind of intelligence from? We're out in almost all of the countries where not only do we have operations or we have a sales team, but we're really active when it comes to thinking about cybersecurity regulations globally. I mean, I think there is a lot that's going on in that space where you take the modality cloud, or you think about data sovereignty, data protection, privacy, and all of this. And I think what we find is that for us, adaption means that we're also part of the conversation. I think a lot of folks think that these are concepts that are static sometimes, but they're not. They're very evolving based on the technology, the requirements, and frankly, what particular governments and societies want in terms of the outcomes that they want in these areas. So, for us, it's really becoming experts not only in the technology itself, so, through our products, our services, and our offerings, but then really sort of helping others to understand it as well. And what we've seen is to be able to then help shape those emerging trends rather than sort of be reactive to them also. So I think there's a reactive element in your question, but I think there's also a proactive one of sort of being part of that conversation. And Rapid7 has been very invested in that. So through our trade association partnerships, through government partners, government partnerships, and then other things that we do globally to continue to raise the profile of these issues.
Thank you so much for your reply. So in order to keep the time, we're going to continue to the next question. So have you developed collaborations with other sectors to strengthen, sorry, not worse, strengthen your cybersecurity solutions? What lessons can you share? Mark, would you like to jump in, or Julian?
Yeah, yeah, we're not really cybersecurity, but we give you, like I said before, granular visibility and actionability to, your most sensitive data, which then drives compliance, right, from a nation state or sovereign standpoint. So that's really what we solve for some of these questions you ask. Like, we're not going to prevent any of the cyber threats, but if there is one, we'll give you the granular visibility of, where was it? Who does it belong to? What was the data? I think that all of us can attest to we've probably gotten a letter in the mail from a financial institution saying your data may have been compromised. Well, how do you not know? Well, we give them that granular visibility and we allow companies in real-time audits to prove, hey, we don't need to report the worst and spin up the war room. We just know it was these three people and we have 100% certainty. So we give more clarity around that data. So
Thank you, Mark. Someone else would
Yeah,
like?
I can comment on that question. Basically, at GoSecure, we started like a long time ago working with the energy sector, and we had to learn how they work, right? Because mostly they're yes, cybersecurity is important to them, but mostly the energy grid needs to stay up, right? And availability is higher than security, right? So when you come as a cybersecurity focus and a practitioner, your first thing is it has to be secure. For them, it has to work, right? So you have to adapt to that reality, and we had to make things evolve on our side to like match to that reality, which is energy needs to the grid needs to be up, and that's it, right? Yes, then it needs to be secure. So those are things that we had to learn through times. That depends on the market that you are. You need to adapt your way of thinking and your way to, even if you're a pro cyber and it has to be secure, yes, but it's not a compromise, but it has to work, then it has to be secured, right? So and then eventually we move to the insurance world, where we're helping insured clients, and yes, they've been breached, but then the insurer has claim specialists that are, their job is to not make sure, but reduce the claims of clients. So on our side, we're trying to do best practice, work to make them secure, but the insurer is not always willing to pay the whole coverage, right? So again, you have to compromise a bit. So yeah, through time, we had to move from being super strong in secure into okay, let's see what's your context, let's adapt and make sure we respect your budget, we respect your reality, and then we get you secure through time. Yeah.
Thank you, Julian. I don't know if Nicolas or Sabine would like to add something.
Raina, I would just say, I mean, I think part of what is really interesting through all of these is not only the sectors, but really understanding the fact that the context matters. If that's the through line in terms of working with collaborations with other sectors, for us, it's been, just not only working with all the sectors, banking, energy, utilities, even thinking about, smaller companies, SMBs, they are in a different headspace when it comes to thinking about managing their risks. And so I think really at the end of the day, cybersecurity is a type of industry where it is unique in some ways because you are all thinking about security, but at the end of the day, the context and the risk is very dependent sometimes on what the outcome is for your clients. So that I think historically has been something where cybersecurity companies are always in listening mode and have really strong signals when it comes to that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd agree with Sabine with what she just said, and it's got to be it's got to be threat centric, right? You have to start with being threat centric. You understand what the threats are, where we're seeing them globally, right? Where we have our enterprise teams, we're working with every sector. You've got to build that intelligence into everything that you do. You've got to really unify your cloud strategy, right? You've got to adopt zero trust into absolutely everything you do. And when you align and you build that foundation, right, you've got mutual value, and it is based on outcome. So, sectors are the same when it comes to those same threats that we're seeing, because those threats are global, and we see them every day, and we know what they are. So we can respond to them for any of those sectors if we do it right. But we've got to base it on what's the outcome to that. And then, you've got to have good leadership for that. You've got to have excellent data collection and measurement to it. and then you've got to adapt, as you go on. Celebrate what you've learned, and you build that into every product that you have. But then you also focus on, what's the long term goal here. What do all sectors share when it comes to protecting their businesses or what they do, right?
Thank you, Nicholas, for the sharing. So we want to move to the last question. What advice would you give to companies looking to export their services internationally? Do you have tips or best practices to share?
I can start right now here.
Yeah.
Mainly, at first, we started our big adventure as selling direct to client, and in order to sell in our home neighborhood, super easy. We're connected, we're known, we have street credibilities, brand awareness. But when exporting, you don't have all of that at all, right? So the play for us was to move to a channel model where we had to onboard partners that had that foot on the ground and boots on the ground, sorry. So and go through that. So building a channel ecosystem for us was the way to do that, right? And it's not always a simple path where you have a partner that will resell your product. Sometimes it's just like we have win-win situation where going together, we're not selling each other product as per se, but we're presenting both our company as a partnership agreement where we do have a story between both company. So my advice would be find a partner that has the same interest that you have and go together, better together, right? And going, I always say I'd rather share than lose everything, right? So you might want to build that ecosystem and relation through international exportation. Yeah.
Thank you for the advices. I don't know if Nicholas, you would like to continue, or Sabine.
Yeah, I'd second what Julian just said. And I would add, like when you're working with that partner, right? Know those partners that can scale, that can do that type of project, right? And have several of them in mind, because sometimes when you're going to work with a different country, or they may have their preferred partners, right? We heard at the beginning of this call in Canada they have preferred partners. No, have a relationship with those partners, know what those partners do, and work with them to make sure your solution can be in alignment with them. So it's working with local partners too as well. I mean, you've got your choice partners that can work internationally, but then you're always going to have customers that have the partners they have in mind, that they're comfortable with.
Thank you. Sabine, would you like to continue?
Yeah, Raina, I think I would boil it down to three things. One is you have to think global but act local. That's definitely for sure. Understand the fact that, you may want to sell in multiple markets, but you really have to understand kind of local practices, local customer preferences, local partners, what works best, and don't underestimate that. I think a lot of folks think, we are in a world where, many, many people have access to similar things, same customer base, but even customers that are global themselves will have, specific wants and needs in specific jurisdictions. So, have something that, in terms of your best practices and how you want to think about your product in a very uniform way that builds trust, but also think a lot about how does that match local and realities in the markets that you want to be in. I would also say that it's good to sort of invest in a lot of listening. Also in the beginning, make sure that your customer teams, facing teams in particular, understand that that's, again, another real good way to sort of build that in as you're iterating off of how do you want to then structure yourselves. And don't underestimate, groups like yours and others that are meant to help companies do foreign direct investment. I think those types of partners from government are really, really invested in the success of others. And so they should not be overlooked as again, another partner, thought leader, and someone you can really lean on.
Thank you, Sabine. So I'm gonna give the floor to Mark before we end the panel questions.
No, I mean, I think everyone had great responses there. I don't really have much to add. I think they're pretty much spot on.
Okay, well, with that being said, thank you all for these great recommendations. Thank you all for being such an amazing panel and sharing valuable insights for everyone. And now we'll take a few questions. If you haven't written yours, please submit them via the chat or raise your hand to do it. I see a question from Guy. What are the most cybersecurity services needed in Boston? Which service would I put from line if I want to enter Boston market? So who would like to answer the question or start answering? Nicolas, Sabine, even the experts. John, if you're there.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, absolutely. What are the most cybersecurity services needed in Boston? Okay, so some big needs that Boston has. I know, you think of their overall OT strategy, right? They've got a lot of they've adopted what we call smart city initiatives, right? Um, Project Greenlight is a project that Boston is doing with Google currently. I was at Google. It's a big Gen AI project. They're taking sensors and they're trying to redesign traffic flows using those sensors, right? That's a project that needs to be protected, right? A lot of that OT is exposed. Many times OT is overlooked. There's a good one. Uh, First responders in Boston absolutely rely on FirstNet, right, and BowNet, which is their fiber network and their mission critical radio systems. So you've got police, fire, EMS all using that. That is a huge area where it gets often overlooked that needs to be protected. So those would be two that I would offer that could get you started in Boston.
Thank you, Nicholas. I don't know if John, you would like to add something?
Yeah, no, I would just second that. I think what, as we've seen with threat actors out there, they're attacking our operational technology in in almost every sector because they're trying to target vulnerabilities and things that might not be secure by design or have vulnerabilities or technology that might be outdated where a lot of OT is relying on Windows 95 or other programs like that. Sorry, that's my dog. I don't know if you can hear her, but um so I would say, in terms of looking at OT solutions, those are pretty good as far as what we're still trying to look at matches for. And you can see the companies here, like there's a lot of capabilities amongst the current companies in Boston. So it's kind of it's a very competitive space in terms of bringing in cybersecurity tools. Um, Maybe a good way to be this would be to partner as like a subsidiary of one of the bigger companies that come in to work, alongside some of the companies that are on here or provide a service that they don't necessarily have in their stack or that could enhance something they already have in their stack too.
Perfect, thank you. I don't see another question right now. You still have time. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand. We still have 2 minutes. I don't see any questions. I don't know if you would like to add something else before we end this segment.
Good here.
Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, now we're ending the questions period segment. And I would like to thank again everyone, Julien, Mark, Nicolas, Sabine, John, Pascal, Valerie, and Segun. I'm pretty sure you have given very insightful information for everyone here. We're going to move soon to the networking session, so please stay with us. Also, for the participants that completed the form and consented to share the contact information, we will send this next week. Additionally, with the presentation, if everyone would like to share your presentations, I will share with all the attendees. And a special thank you again to everyone. With that being said, we're gonna move to the breakout room. And have a great day.